Good morning, everyone. Just want to take a few minutes before we introduce our closing speaker for today to do some things. This has been, for me, a phenomenal conference, and it's just been so great seeing you guys for just two brief 2.5 days, and I know that you all have plans to either leave out today or tomorrow, and it's going to be hard to have you go because I really have had a good time getting to know you again and spending some time with you on particular issues or just getting to know how you and your kids are and your families and all of that. So it's been great, but let me just take a few minutes. I want to give you some conference facts, and I actually wrote these down. This conference, 2.5 days, we have had I'm going to have to put on glasses, unfortunately. 660 people were registered for this conference. Isn't that amazing? Huge. We had, for the first time, an exhibitor's room, and we had 28 companies presenting, exhibiting their products. And they thank you so much for your patronage of that. Hopefully you found some good information. Now, we asked you this year to submit proposal requests for workshops, you the grantees. We received over 90 workshop proposals. So I really, in 30 days, we didn't give you much time to do that. So I really want to thank you for the hard work that you did in submitting those proposals. Well, we only had 48 workshop slots. And so we were able to combine some people and put people together so that we could have as many of you presenting as possible. Now that meant some of you did not get to present this year. And I don't want you to worry about that because I think we're going to do this again next year, and we will give first preference to those grantees that did not get to present. And of course, we'll be looking at the evaluations to see what you all have asked for again. So don't lose heart. Thank you so much for that submission. But of the 48 workshop slots that we had during the 2.5 days, 32 of them were grantee-led, grantee participant workshops. So we definitely, this was your show, this was your presentation, and we thank you for that. Now, of the workshops, I want to thank all of the presenters, but there were a few presenters that were not grantees that we brought in, that asked to come in, that came in on their own cost to present to you, and I just would like to call out their names and thank them. And that would be Mr. Albert Pooley, Rosario Slack, Vernon Williams, J. Michael Hall, Thompson Williams, Neil Tiff. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate that. I also want to take time to thank our speakers, our opening speaker and our luncheon speaker, Reverend Jackson, who kicked us off and gave us goosebumps to go out and think about and use during the 2 days, and Dr. Rolando Diaz-Loving for his presentation. And then we will hear our closing speaker just in a little bit. I cannot stop this without talking about our participant panels. I hope you guys really enjoyed hearing from the people that you served with our 4 panels. And our 4 panels consisted of 23 families that have been recipients of your services. And they came willingly and eagerly to share with you how this has meant so much to them, to give you a little bit of armor to go out there and keep doing it. Because it is making a difference. So I want to thank those families for participating, and I want to thank grantees who submitted proposals for the families to come and getting them here. But I have to thank one particular family especially, and that would be Billy and Lamarck Petty. Must thank them because they were not slated to speak. But on our panel of presenters that were talking about being reentry or formerly incarcerated, we should have had 3 families. We only had 2. And at the last minute, the day before, Billy and Lamarck, who had been through that experience, although they are now employed with one of the grant programs, offered and gladly stepped in to fill out that panel for us. And I just really appreciate that and have to give them a special thank you. Okay, and David Hansel, our acting assistant secretary, was here on the first day to speak, but he had meetings and so he couldn't stay. He felt badly about that, came back during the luncheon time. He was not scheduled. And he asked me to take him around during the lunch while you guys were eating to as many grantees that he could meet before the keynote speaker. And some of you got to do that, but I think he spoke to about 8 grantees. And I want to thank you guys for being there for me and doing that, because it was very important for him to hear from you. And so I just want to thank David Hansel for making that special trip back, guys. Okay. And then I want to thank my staff, my federal project officers, for the work that they have done in helping to prepare this conference. You guys know you do meetings all the time. These things don't happen by themselves, especially in just 6 weeks, because that's all we had once we got a contract. So we had to work very hard and very quickly to get this done. Special thanks to Tanyette Babel, Carol Bush, and Rosalind Ginyard. And Michelle Walters, Tanyette and Carol, you know very well, because they were the recipients of all of your proposals and the ones calling you back to let you know. Rosalind ran the exhibit room. And Michelle, thank you for the work you did with the Resource Center. And I have to thank the Office of General Grants Management, led by Tim Chappell and his team, because they are in the middle of getting your money out there, but they gave us 2 days to come and share with you information that is very vital to your implementing your grant. So I do want to send a special shout out to Tim Chappell and his staff. And with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa so that she can make some remarks. Thank you, guys.
I want to thank all of you for staying and participating and sharing your stories and your programs. And although there's a lot of work, but there's not a conference without the participants. So thank you for staying and sharing and working hard this last 2.5 days. I also want to thank members of my staff who work on the contracts for the technical assistance providers. I want to thank Paul Myers, who postponed his trip to Korea because we always have problems getting a contract signed. And he stayed and worked hard and worked diligently. So thank you very much, Paul. As well as David Camparelli and James Butler, who is over with the Tribal TANF grants. I also want to thank our contractors who worked hard to help prepare the workshops or the exhibit room, or just contacting you. And if anyone from ICF is here, would you please stand? They work with PART and the clearinghouse. Also, ICF just bought Macro, so would ICF Macro stand? As well as CFUF. And I want to thank JBA, who has done amazing work with their Promising Practices booklet and also did a number of workshops. So thank you very much if anyone's here from JBA. And last, I want to thank our logistics contractors. They had 6 weeks to help us plan the logistics. We always have problems with contracts. You think grants are bad? You don't know. Contracts are. They hold you at their mercy. So I would like to thank the BLH staff who worked hard, worked overtime, and was here to greet you and see to all your problems. So I would like to thank Patricia Strong, Antoinette Price, Laura Morella, Donna Jackson, Kim Prue, Anja Reed, Isaac Martin, Tom Mullins, Jessica Avery, Karen Lindsay, and Barbara Saunders. Thank you so very much.
This is the last time this year you'll have to hear my voice. I add to that list the Healthy Marriage Regional Specialists who put together a dynamic workshop. It was full. I heard nothing but great feedback from them, and I actually attended. So thank you all from the regions for coming here and for your partnership that helped make all of this possible. Thank you very much. Just a final thought before we move on. I just found an author, a new favorite author. It's Paulo Coelho. Anybody familiar with him? The book, The Alchemist. And I won't tell you the whole story, but the young man Santiago goes on a journey to Egypt to find his treasure. And along the way, he learns some things, grows, changes, develops, all in preparation for attaining this goal. And he meets an alchemist along the way. And just at the end, when he thought that the treasure was going to be something wonderful buried in the ground, he learned that wherever your tears fall, that's where your treasure is. And you all are my treasure. Lord knows we've shed many a tear over some of you. But I believe, from what I've been hearing from the panels, from the workshops, from the passion that you express when you talk to any of us, that the treasure that you have is in the lives of the individuals and the families, the children that you all serve. Thank you for committing that treasure. Thank you for your fallen tears, because they are helping to refresh and build the lives of America's families. So thank you for coming.
I'm sorry, I forgot to thank NFI, and I also would like to thank Robin McDonald for her leadership, and Geneva Ware Rice. She worked tirelessly getting this together. She forced everybody to come and help, and she told everybody, if you have an IV bag, I still expect you here. So, so she was passionate about making sure that this conference was your conference. She was passionate about making sure that it was successful. And if we could all stand and give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that. But you guys know I love you, and I look forward to having you here every year. It just is, I could go 24 hours a day being with you, and actually kind of did some of that this week. But without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Now, you have his bios in your packet, so I'm not going to read all of that. But I want to present to you the Honorable Arthur L. Burnett as our closing speaker. The few things I want you to know is that Judge Burnett has served on the bench for 36 years. He's in his 51st year of being a practicing attorney. But for the last 5 years, he has served as the National Executive Director of the National African American Drug Policy Coalition. Judge Burnett operates as an advisor on many issues facing American youth, not African American, American youth across the board. Youth including juvenile delinquency, neglect, abuse, and foster care. All of the kids that we touch in our marriage and fatherhood program. So I'd like to bring Judge Burnett up, and thank you so much.
Good morning. It is an honor and privilege to be here with you this morning. And I hope I have a message that will inspire, re-energize, and motivate you to carry forth what is one of the greatest missions in this country. Your theme for this conference is Strong Practices, Bright Promises, Healthy Marriage, and Responsible Fatherhood. Models to strengthen and empower American families. In reflecting on this theme when I was initially contacted and read the material submitted to me, and in my near 75 years of life, a couple of initial thoughts occurred to me. First, I would have approached these issues with the concepts of effective thought and planning to learn what mature and thoughtful parenting requires of an adult. Second, deciding what conduct and behavior should be prioritized in the parent relationship to each other and to the child or children. Then the making of bright promises to each other as parents and to the children. And finally, we get to strong practices and performance. To say this, I am not finding fault with your theme. I just want to emphasize the progression of logic in the steps to achieve these objectives. Second, I wish to emphasize that based on experience and wisdom, when we talk of healthy marriages, we're not talking about perfect marriages, but what we are talking about is a willingness and a commitment to work and make progress, to compromise in deciding matters, to achieve unity of purpose in making the best effort we can at being parents and promoting family unity and happiness. There are going to be problems and issues, and two adults are not always going to walk in lockstep in exercising judgment in deciding what is the best process to achieve the optimal solution to a problem to achieve a strong family. Success and happiness comes in achieving a workable compromise both parents can accept and move forward, reaching happiness and success in their lives' journeys with each other, whether they reach their 40th, 50th, or even greater numbered anniversary. Thus, healthy marriages are not necessarily perfect marriages, but ones with trials and tribulations, but with a love and a commitment to overcome differences, resolve problems, and move on together to achieve success and happiness. We are repeatedly told that if we do not study history and learn its lessons, we are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. Thus, today I wish to emphasize that we must learn and marshal the wisdom of our ancestors and our past, and what conduct and behaviors of a parent molded the personality and character of the child to make that child a productive and contributing and happy member of our society, making a significant contribution to the quality of life in whatever field of endeavor he or she decides to pursue. Thus, I want to share with you for a few minutes my story. Arthur was born into a family in 1935 to a mother who only had an 8th grade education and a father who had only a 6th grade education, but who had a strong work ethic in a laboring job at a manufacturing plant in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Born to this union were 3 children, Arthur, a sister, and then a brother. Both parents worked in unity to stress the importance of getting a quality education, to work and contribute to the family well-being, to do your chores and develop responsibility, and whatever you do, be the best at it. During the formative years of their children, they worked together to have a united approach in raising their children to promote these values. Each of the 3 children were outstanding students through elementary and high schools and went on to college. Each even went on to obtain 2nd degrees. The oldest, Arthur, went on to become a lawyer and then a judge at 33 years of age. The first African-American United States magistrate judge in the history of the nation in June of 1969. And incidentally, in 1968, Mayor Walter Washington selected him to be the first general counsel of the Metropolitan Police Department in the nation's capital, to make sure that as we were undergoing the throes of civil rights changes, that the police department in the nation's capital would respect the civil rights of all individuals, would not engage in police brutality, and would comply with the dictates of the United States Supreme Court. Arthur had plans of staying with the police department 3 to 5 years, but fate had in mind a different path, and he was recruited to become, only 6 months later, the first African-American United States magistrate judge in America. Further along the way, after 6 years as a United States magistrate judge, Arthur was again recruited to become the first African-American legal advisor for the entire United States civil service system in 1975. And in 1977, he was detailed to the White House counsel's office to be advisor to the President Jimmy Carter. Probably more than any of you know, especially those of you who work in the federal government, the impact I've had on your lives, because I am the author of the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978 that created the Senior Executive Service, that defined and described the statutory powers of the Office of Personnel Management, the Merit Systems Protection Board, the Federal Labor Relations Authority, and the Office of Special Counsel. You see, this little boy from a humble family in Spotsylvania, Virginia, because of effective, healthy families and parents who worked together, for 3.5 years got to work with the President of the United States, meeting with him 3 or 4 times a week from 1977 to 1980, and then returning to the bench a second time, where he's remained on the bench until the present time, taking a sabbatical for 5 years to head the National African American Drug Policy Coalition, Incorporated of America, a coalition of 25 member organizations representing 750,000 African American professionals, to bring about reforms in our drug laws in America, to treat drug addiction and drug dependency as a disease to be treated rather than bouncing people in and out of prison for possessing drugs to feed that craving or compulsion to use drugs, to bring about reforms in our criminal justice system and our juvenile justice system to deal more humanely with the interlocking problems of criminal justice and public health and medical issues of drug abuse and mental health issues in this nation. Perhaps next to resolving the crises of the economic problems of this nation and recession, the most penetrating and pervasive problem, a problem which is at the core of health care reform, is the extent and severity of substance abuse and drug misuse and abuse, including prescription drugs, an impact on 45 to 60 million people in this nation. I have digressed from my prepared text just to give you that little additional background of showing you what healthy families can do in raising children. And with the proper installation of values, work ethic, and goals, what one can achieve. Now, returning to my text, I mentioned also that I have a sister, some 5 years younger, and she obtained her master's degree and a certificate for a PhD, but did not do a dissertation, and served as a principal administrator to Bloomberg School of Public Health for almost 20 years until she retired in the summer of 2007 and became the president of HERO in Baltimore to oversee the development of policies for HIV and AIDS treatment in this nation and in the city of Baltimore. And then a younger brother, some 7 years younger, with a master's in music who served for some 30-some years or more in the Richmond, Virginia school systems as a music instructor and band leader. And when he retired, like me, he didn't retire to sit down. He now plays in 3 orchestras and bands out of Richmond, Virginia, and is busy in the music field as I am in the law. But life has a fickle way. And as the 3 children reached adulthood and started their families, our parents' health began to fail miserably. My father developed a serious heart attack, and as a result of that, he started drinking and drinking excessively to drown his worries, his sorrows, and he died at 59. It's one of the reasons I'm committed to substance abuse issues as much as I am. And in her mid-50s, my mother began to experience the symptoms of Alzheimer's. And she lived to be 67, but during the last 8 to 10 years of her life, we doubt that she even recognized her own children and her grandchildren. It's one of the reasons I had the commitment at almost 75 years of age of constantly being on the go as a catalyst to inspire and motivate people throughout America to endeavor to solve these problems. And what did we do with the values that our parents instilled in us? My wife and I have 5 children. The oldest, a woman, is a lawyer and a CPA, and a special assistant to the Director of Public Housing Programs for the nation's capital today. The second, a medical doctor with my name, who is a world-famous inventor. The third, a son, a public health administrator for the United States Department of Health and Human Services, a deputy administrator of the Community Health Centers program. The fourth, a second daughter, an economist with Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan. And the fifth, a baby daughter who's a doctor of veterinary medicine in New York City, serving as surgery consultant in cancers and tumors in small animals in the 5 boroughs of New York City. My sister had 2 daughters, one with a college degree and specialty in banking finance, the other completing a college degree program and also studying for the ministry as I speak to you now. And my younger brother and his wife had 2 children, one of whom is a child psychologist, and a son who received a technology degree and specializes in computers and graphic art. 3 generations. This is what healthy families can produce. I will now shift gears and share with you one of the best kept secrets in America. My oldest son, Arthur L. Burnett II, MD, holds 3 degrees and is the principal inventor of Viagra. He is okay. He is the number 2 person listed on the patent issued in 1995 and was the project director of the experiments leading to Pfizer patenting and selling Viagra. The first person listed was his supervisor. Today, he is a medical doctor at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, professor in urology, director of basic science laboratory and neurological, and director of Mayo Consultation Clinic, Johns Hopkins Medical Institution. He recently received his master's in business administration in managing hospitals in May 2009. He's also the holder of a second patent, issued by the United States on June 29, 2002, in developing a method for treating nerve injury caused as a result of surgery, built on the skills and knowledge he developed in perfecting Viagra. You may be wondering what magic did my wife and I use to raise 5 such children. To summarize, we started reading to them when they were only several months old. We made them feel secure and wanted. We praised their achievements. We encouraged them to develop their interests, and we supported them in their natural inclinations as they grew. We did not attempt to force them into our mold, but permitted them to develop their own personalities and attitudes. By the way, my wife is a registered nurse with post-study nursing specialization that's almost the equivalent of a PhD in nursing. We minimize the negatives, the put-downs, the rejections, the pushing away from us, or we do not want to be bothered with them attitude. And as they grew, we planned an agenda of activities for each from the time they awoke in the morning until they went to bed at night. And we exposed them to youth programs, to musical programs for children, and cultural activities and events. Our weekends were filled with these type of events from the ages of 4 or 5 until they went away to college. And we involved them in participatory activities from 6 and 7 years of age until they were grown. As I approach 75 years of age, the following are the essential principles and practices I have discerned based on being a father and raising 5 children, based on being a lawyer for almost 51 years, and of that period, some 36 years, being a judge, having presided over thousands of neglect and abuse cases, termination of parental rights cases, and adoption cases, and having mentored hundreds, if not a couple of thousand, high school, college, and law school students since 1969 as mentees or as interns while serving as a judge to the present time. I think I had 12 or 13 mentees and interns this past summer. So for a period of 40 years, I have in fact conducted research with these youngsters as to what motivated you in life. What type of family home did you have? Why are you pursuing a PhD degree in sociology or psychology? So these students, I become almost like a surrogate father to them, and I not only interviewed them, but I learned from whence they came and where they want to go. Now, turning to the core of the matter, and also to the issue of responsible fatherhood. I've talked at this point about healthy marriages, relationships between mother and father, but now I want to focus on the issue of father responsibility. And indeed, Josh DeBow, Faith-Based Initiative, has this as one of his principal objectives of the Faith-Based Initiative program, and has asked me to be a consultant and advisor to him as to programs for this nation in promoting fatherhood. A child is a product of both a mother and a father. From the time of birth, both the mother and father should cuddle that child, make the child feel loved, wanted, and secure, and not just a nuisance to be fed when he or she cries or wants to be changed when the diaper is wet or otherwise soiled. Ages 0 to 3 are the formative years of building basic personality and character, so the child psychologist tells us. Thus, if the mother is on welfare or in the dependency or neglect and abuse system, steps should be taken to identify the father as soon as possible, not just as a means of financial child support, but to involve the father in the nurturing of the child and instilling values and in molding the personality and character of that child. Where the child is conceived outside of wedlock based on a fling or casual sex, within 2 to 3 weeks of the child's birth, steps should be taken to identify the father through HLA or DNA testing, through a paternity suit, or if in the neglect and abuse system, to identifying the father and involving the father in the child's life and potential parental reunification. The mother should be required to testify under oath in a preliminary proceeding as to her best knowledge of who might be the father. And a locator service should immediately take reasonable steps to find him, to get him involved in the child's life. He should be more than, quote, a milk cow, close quotes, to provide child support, and should have reasonable visitation and spend time with the child to instill values. This may also motivate the father to develop a deeper sense of responsibility, self-esteem, and even a work ethic. It may well influence the man not to become involved in the criminal justice system because he wants to be around to see the child grow up in the image he desires. Meaningful involvement in the child's life may well reduce the number of black men ending up in our penal system as prison inmates, or some people say prison fodder. And if we develop an approach like the fathering court in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia to provide supportive services, that is, job training, meaningful employment, drug testing, psychological counseling, help in obtaining affordable housing, it could lead to the father marrying the mother and establishing a healthy and strong family. What then about the ages 3 to 6? What should we do? Both mother and father should read to the child and instill in the child an inquiring spirit to learn, to ask the why questions, a desire to want to know, and thus we build self-esteem through heaping praise on such a child and giving the child rewards so that when the child begins kindergarten, there will be a thirst for knowledge and a reaching out by the child to absorb all that can be provided to the child. I frequently suggest that we African Americans, as a race of people, are still afflicted with the vestiges of slavery. We always have to put down and push back or subordinate someone to us as we are imitating what we were subjected to in our history. But we cannot afford such negativity with our children. I call this our subjection syndrome we inherited from the masters of the plantation. We cannot put down, cut down, and always be mothering words of rejection. We must avoid making the child feel unwanted and worthless, or a pawn to be fought over by warring parents. Instead, we must praise, build self-esteem, and reward so that the child grows up in a positive manner and has a positive attitude towards life and to the many tomorrows to follow. What then should we be doing when the child is between 6 and 10 years of age? Both mother and father should promote positive peer contact and activities. Fathers must participate in sports events, in the Scouts, and in other character-building activities, and praise their children for their positive interaction with other children their own age, and for achieving and displaying positive values. Fathers should teach their children to be team players and to value cooperation and show mutual respect for others, but at the same time to develop a sense of pride in their own abilities and accomplishments. Where the child does fall short, the parent should display compassion and understanding rather than belittling the child, exacerbating the disappointment and frustration of the child. Rather, the parent should take a forward-looking approach of encouragement for improvements in the future. What do we do when the child is between 10 and 15 years of age? We must allow the child to begin to sprout his or her wings, to develop some degree of independence and self-reliance. We must cultivate a sensitivity to evaluating one's peers and associates to determine with whom to associate and to follow. We must allow the child to engage in development of personhood and identity of self, and for the child to begin to explore what will be his or her purpose in life. The father should be a partner in guiding and exposing the child, but should not be a dictator, attempting to force the child to live his dream or to be his clone. The parent, father, and mother must cultivate the child's aptitude, expose the child to those areas in which his or her natural inclination leads the child, to help the child find himself or herself, and to praise the child for the steps forward to determine what he or she wishes to do with his or her life. This is the time to start on voluntary internships and community service, where the child is making contacts with others to learn to make judgments of who to trust and who not to trust, who to associate with and who not to associate with, so the child is not led down the primrose path. Finally, what then of those troubling years of 15 to 21? Where parents must begin to kind of push the child out of the nest, to be self-reliant, to prepare the child for college and outside contact and influences. The parents should do things that support and encourage, do things together and provide opportunities for educational exposures and more intensive internship experiences in various fields to help the child find his or her niche, to be self-satisfied with the quality of his or her life through a lifetime. Now for some concluding remarks. Today we live in America, becoming increasingly more diverse in culture and tradition. We must recognize these different cultures, even as to family relationships and the building of values, either based on morals and or on one's own religious traditions, if any. We must recognize that we cannot have one size fits all. And those of us who work in the field of family relationships, marriages, and proper parenting must broaden our perspectives and sensitivities so that there is a reasonable and logical basis for what we suggest be done to strengthen and empower America's families. As for fathering in the context of the above comments, I think we can all agree that fathering is far more than being a sperm donor and then walking away. It is also far more than being a money supplier, a conduit for child support. We should also wish to develop a substantive content of fatherhood, which goes far deeper and which requires a sharing of significant time with a child sufficient to mold personality and character. of a productive and positive human being. One with a work ethic, a sense of self-worth and esteem, and a positive attitude to life in reaching his or her potential. With all the intellectual abilities and talents one has been endowed with as a person. To close, the goal of strengthening and empowering America's families must be based on a solid foundation, notwithstanding our diversity. And we must meet quality floor standards of what it means to be a parent and what is necessary to raise a healthy child. That is what our laws involving dependency, neglect, and abuse, and persons in need of supervision are meant to serve. Striking this balance while recognizing the diversity in our society may be a challenge, but it is one we must prepare ourselves to meet in dealing with the most precious resources we have in this nation, our children and their future. I thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much, Judge Burnett. And with no further ado, I just want to, again, it's the last day of a conference, and I've been to so many conferences where there's nobody left on the closing. And I just want you to know how proud I am of you guys for being here and giving up your time to support the speakers and presenters that we've had and to take home some knowledge. So with that, go have fun. Bye.